Hey guys, Midnight Strike here, welcoming you to the first of a two-part finale for my 2013 reviews. Now, this is the video game portion, and as I didn't do a video game portion last year, I'm going to combine the releases of 2012 and 2013 to form a cohesive video on what is the best video game of each year. So, respectively, a few video games that have been left out of the mix as I didn't review them are two video games, Dead Space 3 and Far Cry 3. I played a little bit of Far Cry 3, didn't really touch Dead Space 3, but I watched it. It seems like a good game, but I have not played enough of it to really give my reflection on the matter. So I'm going to try and keep each segment under a minute because the last time it kind of ran a little bit longer with my 2012 album review reflections with 2011 through 2012. So with this one, I am going to try and keep it under a minute, and in future segments, like I said last year, I'm going to try and do just single years. So without further ado, let's dive into the best video games of 2012 through 2013. Soul Calibur V is an interesting game to say the least. It has very fluid animations, pretty sweet character customization with endless possibilities, really fun and engaging and, albeit competitive, online features, and a very tough and challenging AI. At the expense of other characters, new characters with the same movesets as the old characters are added in, allowing for a little bit of a immersion breaker there, so I'll give it that much. It's not the best fighting game on the market, as I do prefer the first Soul Calibur, but this is definitely one that should not be missed. I actually did a review on it, like a week or so ago, so not really sure that I feel too different about it, given the amount of time that has passed since I reviewed it. So I'm going to say that this is a pretty decent game, and not really the best game of 2012, but decent to say the least. So when I first started out this Midnight Strike channel, I really didn't review that many new games. I mean, yeah, sure, I reviewed Metal Gear Solid HD Collection and Final Fantasy X, but those weren't really that new, and beyond that, I really didn't review anything like that until this game came out. This little game is called Dishonored. It was released in October of 2012, and what's really unique about it is that it combines a lot of different gameplay mechanics and elements found in other video game series such as Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil being the most prominent. However, it has a certain polish, it has a certain shine in the artistic direction that really reminds me a lot of BioShock, especially after playing the first one for the first time, like a few months ago. I can definitely see it. I could see it in the previews of Infinite, and it has a really artistic flair to it, and it's a really fun game to play, although it does get a bit repetitive. I don't know if this is necessarily one of the best games of 2012, but it's definitely up there. I would definitely recommend to people who love the stealth game genre. Okay, so it's going to be really hard to cram this into a minute, so basically, my opinions have drastically changed since I first reviewed it. I was initially very mixed on the subject of Assassin's Creed 3, however, now the faults of Assassin's Creed 3 are genuinely showing even more so. However, I still like the Desmond sequences, I love the ship battles, which carried over into Black Flag and were vastly improved, but that is for a few segments later. Now, my main gripes with Assassin's Creed 3 are Connor, everything about Connor, enough said, the superficial way they place him in history, and just the overall control scheme. They changed the control scheme so that you're always running, always free running, all the time. You used to have to press a button in order to free run, and you keep climbing up trees in a very just annoying way, and it's just kind of not really that good of an experience overall. I would definitely recommend Assassin's Creed 2 over this any day. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is basically Sony's attempt at a Smash Bros. Game. Now, they've said this from the very beginning, so people shouldn't be all up in arms about the number of similarities between the two. I, however, see a lot of core differences, because in the backgrounds, they actually use various elements from different series to actually combine them with other series in the tracks. You'd actually have to know what I'm talking about. You actually have to see it, but say you're fighting in a medieval-themed world, Metal Gear Ray might come in and start wrecking the entire place. It's just amazing, and you've got a lot of different characters to choose from. When I initially reviewed it, I was not really mixed about it, but I gave it more of a positive review. I still feel pretty much the exact same way that I do, and when I would rate it the exact same, it's very different from Smash Bros. In its core nature, and it's a really fun experience overall, especially when you are playing it online with other people. So up until last year, I never really played any of the Sly Cooper games. I got into it via PlayStation Plus, got Sly 1 HD for free, and decided, you know what, I might as well play the sequel, Sly 4 Thieves in Time, or Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, moreover, and I found that it was actually a very fun and fulfilling game. Not necessarily one of the best of this year, definitely not one of the best, but I mean, The Last of Us and GTA 5 looming over our heads, but it was a decent playthrough. Lots of fun and engaging tasks, lots of awesome missions, and there's a lot of variety. However, it didn't really add up to much, and the childish appeal really wore off on me a little bit. Maybe I'm just getting too old for these kind of games, but I mean, it would be good for maybe like someone between the ages of maybe like 12 and 20 or so. 12 and maybe like 18 or 17 if you're looking for that nostalgia factor. It is a very decently paced game as well, so I'll give it that much. So the fourth entry in the God of War series enters the market to mixed reception, myself included. I actually really enjoyed this game, God of War Ascension, to a certain degree. Now, I played God of War 3, didn't really enjoy it that much, so I did enjoy God of War Ascension more than 3. However, there were some very frustrating and confusing moments. Sometimes I feel like the plot takes a backseat to the action and the gameplay, and sometimes they're using the puzzles in kind of a really confusing way and kind of a confusing setup to new players that don't really know what the heck they're doing. So when I get into the plot, you don't really find out a lot, whereas in the previous games, the plot was exposed through cutscenes. There really isn't that much exposition. You are Kratos, you go through a set path, you fight the enemies, puzzles, enemies, puzzles, enemies. That's basically what it feels like. So if you like God of War, I would highly recommend getting this game to get in on the story and the plot detail. But if you're just kind of a casual fan, I would suggest kind of an other medium, probably God of War 2 or something. But this definitely isn't the best game in the series, but it's also not the worst, in my opinion. So this is a game that I've been looking forward to since 2011, 2 years before it was released, ever since I saw the trailer, and Naughty Dog being one of my favorite game developers, I knew I just had to have it. If it was anything like Uncharted, anything like Crash Bandicoot, I had to have it. It was amazing. This tale, set in a post-apocalyptic backdrop, centers around two characters, Joel and Ellie. Now, these two characters have a father-daughter relationship that grows even stronger as the characters progress through the main story. I actually beat this game twice. The first time I beat it was within 4 days. However, I was actually playing it for 8 hours at a time. The sheer level of realism and attention to detail in all of the houses, the zombie designs, the hunter designs, and even the character models is just bar none perfect practically. The Last of Us has definitely set the bar high coming out of this generation and probably will remain to be the swan song of the PlayStation 3. Now, it should be noted that it is an exclusive, so go out and get a PlayStation 3, play this game, or if it comes to PlayStation 4 in any form, maybe like a streaming game, then get it for that. Definitely recommend it. I definitely maintain my perfect 10 score. This is one that you do not want to miss. This game has accomplished a remarkable feat. For the first time in Grand Theft Auto history, I was actually paying attention to the story over blowing stuff up most of the time. Now, this could be a very good thing, but it could also be a very bad thing. However, Rockstar Games, those who have created the Grand Theft Auto series, have managed to combine character development, immersion, and plot exposition into the Grand Theft Auto world that was previously more or less focused on chaos. So they've done a remarkable thing in this one and have added a ton of different weapons, various animals to run over and do whatever in the mountains, and San Andreas is back and bigger than ever as you explore the area of Los Santos reimagined. That's probably one of the best things about this game, but not to give too much away, you have 3 different protagonists to go through, 3 of them, each with a different personality and each more and more engaging than the last. So I would highly recommend this game. If you've played San Andreas before, you will absolutely love it. Usually when people try to shove online gaming in my face, I tend to back off and push them away because in most, if not all cases, it is unnecessary, unneeded, and very cumbersome. But in Need for Speed Rivals' case, I actually embraced it in full force because of the sheer amount of options at your disposal. That is to say, of course, you can play this game offline, but you will be playing against AIs performing certain objectives, and it's just that much more fun against real people. You are assigned a server, you can customize your own vehicle, albeit with limited customization options, but it is definitely worth it to roam around in Redview County looking for opponents. And when you challenge someone to a race, it is seamless. There are no load times, you just press the button, wait for a reply, and you keep going. That's what I love about it so much, is its seamless transition from racing, or from just roaming the streets to racing. It's just an amazing experience overall, and I would highly recommend that you get it. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10 in my initial review, and I will stand by that statement. Not sure if it's one of the best games of 2013, but it's definitely up there, especially for a launch title for the PlayStation 4. Like I said before, hope to see you on the servers. It's an awesome game. Let me just start off by saying this is not a very good assassin game. But however, on the flip side, it is an excellent, probably one of the best pirate games on the market right now. I absolutely love the sheer depth of attention to detail in the open world segments where you can actually go out and fight against your own ships as the pirate Edward Kenway. Now, of course, this Edward Kenway is related to Connor Kenway because Connor is Edward's grandson, but Connor's nowhere to be seen in this sequel, thank the Lord. But for God's sakes, it seems like a spin-off. One of the main characters has died by this point. Not gonna say who because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's definitely noticeable, and your character outside of the Animus you definitely feel like it's a spin-off, like it's a little bit rushed, and there's a lot of options at your disposal, but a lot of them just feel kind of shallow. The combat seems loose, and it doesn't really feel like you're making any progress against the enemies when you're slashing away at them. So with that, it's a decent game, but for the Assassin's Creed series, it's not necessarily one of the best, not necessarily one of the worst. Definitely better than 3, though. So between all these games, I have to pick 2 clear-cut winners, one for 2012 and the other one for 2013. And like I said in my 2012 finale for my music, after this point I'm just going to do just straight up single years, because before 2012 I really didn't have that many games to review or do a reflections video on, so I decided to wait until this year, until I had a lot more games at my disposal that I have so far reviewed. I am of course going to make my albums reflections video probably either next week or next 2 weeks or so after I get the review dumpster out of the way. It's been forever, but you know, it is what it is. But the 2 final games I would have to pick, obviously, for 2013 is going to be The Last of Us, as I have pretty much praised that game to high heaven as being one of my favorite games of all time. It was a perfect 10, absolutely loved it, and this year has been very good for gaming. Not better than 2011, but very good in its own right. So 2012, however, I'm not sure. I mean, I played a few games that I never actually got the chance to review from 2012, like Dark Souls being one of them, but I would still definitely say that the best game of 2012 would have to be Dishonored. I haven't played Hitman Absolution, still got to get to that one, so if you're going to be like, oh, well, what about Hitman? Where's Hitman? You know, I haven't played it. I'm going to play it. So from those that I've reviewed, Dishonored, definitely, by a long shot. Maybe, you know, to a lesser extent, Soul Calibur V. That was a decent game, but it was nowhere near Dishonored, because the sheer amount of gameplay elements that it managed to combine into one cohesive stealth action title was just astonishing. I absolutely loved it. So it got a little bit repetitive towards the end, and sure, the plot was a bit cliche, especially in the very ending, but the fact that it had multiple endings, it had multiple ways of going through the levels, it was practically open world. You got to return to various settings of Dunwall, which is the town, just made it all that much more immersive. And playing as an assassin, like in Assassin's Creed, of course, made it that much better. So my final verdict is the best game of 2012 is Dishonored, best game of 2013, The Last of Us. So next week or 2 weeks from now, whenever I get around to it, I am going to be doing my reflections video on music, so stay tuned for that. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Until then, keep calm and rock on.